The target, a hidden Houthi stronghold. High in the remote, craggy mountains of northern Yemen, far from the eyes of the world and unreachable by ordinary ground forces, lay one of the most secretive and dangerous facilities ever operated by the Houthi rebel movement. Built into a natural rock formation and reinforced with layers of concrete and camouflage netting, this was not merely a rebel hideout. It was a strategic fortress, a nerve center for hostile operations stretching across the Red Sea and into the Arabian Peninsula. This base was the brain of the beast. From here, Houthi commanders directed maritime drone strikes on commercial shipping in the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, one of the world's busiest and most vital trade routes. It was also the staging ground for launching Iranian-supplied ballistic missiles and Shahed-style drones targeting U.S. naval vessels, Saudi oil facilities, and coalition bases across the region. Deep within the compound were weapons depots filled with crates marked in Farsi, proof of Iranian involvement. There were anti-ship missiles, improvised explosive devices, and drone assembly lines concealed within bunkers dug into the hillside. Dozens of armed fighters guarded the base around the clock, each one highly motivated, battle-hardened, and willing to die. Intelligence had been building for weeks. U.S. satellites captured heat signatures at odd hours, generators powering underground workshops, military vehicles moving under tarps, and communication bursts intercepted by NSA listening posts. Signals intelligence confirmed that senior Houthi commanders were using the facility to coordinate attacks not only on American assets, but also on Saudi and Emirati territory. Reconnaissance drones from the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower battle group circled at high altitude, snapping photos of suspected launch pads, radar installations, and hidden tunnel entrances. The imagery analysts at CENTCOM grew increasingly alarmed. They weren't just seeing weapons, they were seeing logistics, planning, and expansion. This wasn't just a target. It was a ticking bomb. The political cost of inaction was growing. One more drone strike on a U.S. destroyer or another attack on a commercial tanker, and the region could erupt into open war. The Pentagon faced mounting pressure to neutralize the threat. Finally, after a late-night classified briefing at the White House, the National Security Advisor signed off on the strike. A secure message was transmitted across the globe to CENTCOM headquarters in Tampa, then relayed to the carrier strike group stationed in the Arabian Sea. Inside a command room aboard the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, a voice crackled over the encrypted radio. Target confirmed. Authorization granted. Take it out. The strike, dropping the hammer. The night air over the Arabian Sea was silent until it wasn't. At precisely 2:13 local time, a squadron of U.S. Navy FA-18 Super Hornets launched from the flight deck of the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. Their engines roared like thunder as they vanished into the night sky, heading toward the Yemeni mountains where the hidden Houthi stronghold waited, unaware. Each aircraft carried a payload designed for surgical destruction. JDAMs, Joint Direct Attack Munitions, GPS-guided bombs capable of hitting within inches of their target. Pilots wore night vision helmets, reading HUD's glowing green in the darkness as they flew in tight formation, hugging the radar horizon. Below them, desert, mountains, and one of the most dangerous terrorist infrastructure hubs in the region. Aboard the lead jet, a pilot gave the word. Weapons hot. Target in range. Miles away, intelligence analysts and commanders watched from screens in Bahrain, Florida, and aboard the carrier, tracking the aircraft in real time. Tensions were high. The operation had to be flawless. Civilian casualties were unacceptable, and missing the mark would mean the Houthi threat lived to strike again. At 2:47 a.m., the jets reached the target zone. The pilots, guided by satellite-fed coordinates and laser designators, released their payloads. Whoosh! Bomb bay doors opened. JDAMs sliced through the air, each one a 500 or 2,000-pound smart weapon programmed to bury itself into concrete and detonate milliseconds later. Then, impact. Boom! 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 The mountains lit up as the bombs smashed into the Houthi compound with surgical precision. The first blasts flattened the surface structures, watchtowers, communications arrays, barracks. But then came the secondaries, massive explosions that ripped from deep underground as fuel stores, missile stockpiles, and weapons caches ignited in a chain reaction. Fireballs shot into the air. Shockwaves rolled down the hillsides, shaking the earth for miles. The glow could be seen from satellites. The pilots, circling above, confirmed what they saw. Target destroyed. Good effect on target. Cheers erupted in command centers. The compound, the command hub for Houthi, missile and drone operations, was reduced to rubble. Years of planning, logistics, and Iranian investment wiped out in under 5 minutes. The jets turned back toward the Eisenhower, flying home under the same cloak of darkness. Mission accomplished. The unexpected twist. Then this happened. In the wake of the strike, satellite images showed smoke still rising from the Yemeni mountains. U.S. forces monitored heat signatures and seismic readings, confirming what they believed was a total collapse of the Houthi stronghold. Command centers marked it a success, but within hours, everything changed. From beneath the rubble, figures began to emerge. Houthi fighters, bloodied, dust-covered, and enraged, crawled out of hidden subterranean tunnels. The intelligence community had missed a critical detail. The compound wasn't just fortified, it was multi-layered, with deep underground bunkers that had shielded dozens of militants from the blast. These weren't just survivors, they were fighters ready for immediate retaliation. Armed with rifles, rocket-propelled grenades, and looted supplies, they gathered above ground and filmed themselves waving Houthi flags beside the smoldering ruins. Hours later, their media wing released a chilling broadcast. America's missiles killed our brothers, but not our spirit. You have awakened a fire that cannot be contained. We will strike back tenfold. They didn't wait long to prove it. Just 24 hours later, a U.S. Navy destroyer patrolling the Red Sea picked up inbound threats. Moments later, 2 Houthi drones launched from western Yemen screamed toward the vessel. One was shot down by CYWS guns. The other crashed into the sea just 100 yards away. That same night, a commercial cargo ship sailing through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait was rocked by a direct missile strike, setting its engine room ablaze. The crew sent out a mayday. It was a clear message. No vessel was safe. The Houthis declared an open war on the United States and its allies, calling for attacks on military and commercial targets alike. Iranian media amplified their message, hailing the rebels as heroes standing against Western aggression. What had started as a tactical victory had now ignited a regional firestorm. The strike meant to decapitate the Houthi command instead fanned the flames of war. The mission hadn't ended the threat, it had escalated it. The aftermath, a dangerous game of cat and mouse. In the immediate hours after the airstrike, the U.S. Department of Defense monitored the satellite feeds with a tense optimism. The strike had been precise, powerful, and devastating. The Houthi command hub appeared destroyed. Fires still burned in the hills outside Sana'a. Plumes of smoke twisted into the dawn sky like a grim flag of victory. But then the reports began to pour in, confusing, unsettling, and all too familiar. Survivors had emerged, not just a handful, but dozens, armed, organized, and unshaken in their resolve. U.S. intelligence analysts scrambled to reevaluate. How did this happen? The answer was buried, literally. The Houthi compound had been constructed not only into the rock, but underneath it, reinforced by deep tunnels and hidden caverns carved out over years. Much of the leadership and arms stockpile had survived underground. The strike had delivered a powerful blow, but not a killing one. Within 24 hours, the Houthis had regrouped and retaliated. A swarm of kamikaze drones slammed into a U.S. naval patrol in the Red Sea. A Saudi cargo vessel was struck by a missile off the coast of Al-Hudaydah. These weren't symbolic responses. They were a message. You hit us in the dark. We hit you in the open. Washington's dilemma. Back in Washington, the Pentagon and White House convened an emergency security council. The options were stark and familiar, eerily reminiscent of Cold War-era brinkmanship and the slow escalations seen in Iraq and Afghanistan. Escalate the strikes? Risk wider war in a country already devastated by a civil conflict that had displaced over 4 million people? Hold fire and de-escalate? Risk appearing weak and emboldening not only the Houthis, but also their regional sponsor, Iran, and other militias watching closely across Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon. A shadow war with Iran. Though not directly on the battlefield, Iran's fingerprints were everywhere. Intercepted communications showed that Tehran had likely green-lit weapon shipments even before the airstrike. Weeks after the bombing, American drones spotted Iranian fast boats delivering weapons near the Yemeni coastline under the guise of fishing vessels. Intelligence confirmed that new Iranian-made drones, anti-ship missiles, and precision-guided munitions were flowing freely into Houthi hands. Iran wasn't just supporting the Houthis. They were using Yemen as a testing ground for asymmetrical warfare against American forces. The trap of the forever war. To many U.S. military strategists, the parallels were alarming. A rural insurgency backed by a foreign power, mountainous terrain ideal for guerrilla warfare, a decentralized enemy embedded within civilian populations, endless targets, but no clear endgame. Those old enough to remember Vietnam, Somalia, or even the early days of Afghanistan couldn't help but see history trying to repeat itself, with new uniforms, new technology, but the same deadly rhythm. Retired generals warned of a forever conflict vortex, where small retaliations stack into full-scale missions, and one tactical success leads to long-term strategic failure. Congress grew nervous. Allies asked questions. And the public? Most remained unaware that America might be tiptoeing into yet another war, one without a declaration, without a finish line, just a growing list of risks. And so the game began. The next few weeks became a chess match in the shadows. U.S. cyber units jammed Houthi communications. Houthis fired anti-ship missiles at oil tankers in the Gulf of Aden. U.S. Navy destroyers intercepted drones, sometimes just seconds before impact. Each move drew a counter-move. Each day, the cost of one decisive strike looked more and more like the first step in a prolonged war of attrition. The Houthis had survived. The Iranians were watching, and America was once again caught in the middle of someone else's battlefield. Only now, the stakes extended across oceans, economies, and eras. The bigger picture. Why this matters for you to some. Yemen might seem like a distant land, a footnote in the vast ledger of global unrest. But to those who have lived through war, inflation, energy crises, and broken promises of quick victories, this isn't just another strike, it's a warning sign. History is whispering, and it's saying we've been here before. From the jungles of Vietnam to the deserts of Iraq, Americans have seen this pattern. A terrorist threat, a strategic airstrike, a promise. This won't escalate? Then, the unexpected. Retaliation, more troops, a drawn-out campaign. Now, once again, we're watching U.S. fighter jets light up a foreign sky, this time over Yemen. A rebel stronghold has been bombed, targets destroyed, mission complete. But is it? Why should you care? This isn't just their war. It could become ours. The HouthiRebels are not a traditional army. They're insurgents, guerrillas, tunnel fighters. You bomb one base, they scatter, regroup, retaliate. It's a deadly cat-and-mouse game, and the U.S. just entered the maze. Every time a drone launches or a missile flies, the risk of escalation grows. The Houthis aren't isolated. They're backed by Iran, which is in turn aligned with Russia and loosely connected to China through shared geopolitical interests. That makes this more than a civil war. It's a potential powder keg. One wrong move, one American casualty, one downed aircraft, one misfired missile, and the White House may be forced to respond more forcefully. That's how limited engagements turn into endless wars. The economic fallout is already here. Yemen lies beside the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a critical choke point connecting the Red Sea to the Arabian Sea. If the Houthis continue targeting commercial shipping, oil tankers will reroute, increasing fuel costs globally. Insurance premiums on shipping will spike. Supply chains, already fragile from COVID and global unrest, will be disrupted again. That affects you. Whether you're filling your gas tank, buying groceries, or waiting on medication, the prices you pay are directly tied to these global flashpoints. Remember the 1973 oil embargo, the gas lines, the inflation, the energy panic? Older Americans do, and the signs are all too familiar. 3. It's not just Yemen. It's a message to Iran and the world. Each U.S. airstrike is being watched, not just by the Houthis, but by Tehran, Moscow, Beijing, Pyongyang, and terrorist cells worldwide. They're measuring the U.S. response. Will America hold its ground? Or will it hesitate and retreat as it did after the USS Cole or during early Syria red lines? If the answer is weakness, adversaries will grow bolder. If it's strength, we risk widening the battlefield. The human cost is always higher than promised. Let's not forget the boots on the ground, the pilots in the skies, and the sailors aboard destroyers in harm's way. Every new mission, every order to engage, carries risk. We've seen young men and women sent off to short-term deployments, only to come back changed, injured, or not at all. Ask any veteran of Iraq or Afghanistan how quick interventions tend to turn out. This matters because it's bigger than Yemen. This is about the future of American foreign policy, the stability of global markets, and the safety of your children and grandchildren. It's about whether our nation repeats its past or finally learns from it. When you hear a news anchor say, U.S. forces struck a rebel position in Yemen today, don't tune out. Lean in. Because history teaches us that what happens in faraway mountains can end up costing lives in Middle America. This is more than a mission report. It's a red flag waving in the wind of global politics. When fighter jets drop the hammer, the blast echoes far beyond the desert. It shakes the world economy, tests international alliances, and defines who we are as a people. And that matters to every single one of us. Final thought. A lesson from history. As ancient Chinese general Sun Tzu wisely said, know your enemy and know yourself, and you can fight 100 battles without disaster. These are not just poetic words, they are a chilling reminder that power without understanding is a dangerous game. In today's world of surgical airstrikes, artificial intelligence, and 24-hour media cycles, it's easy to forget that war is never simple, and victory is rarely clean. A drone strike may destroy a bunker, but not an ideology. A missile may eliminate a target, but not the roots of extremism. The Houthis are not just fighters with guns. They are part of a deeply entangled network of tribal loyalties, regional politics, and religious tensions, fueled by a proxy rivalry between Iran and Saudi Arabia. When the U.S. gets involved, it is not just attacking a compound. It is stepping into a layered, ancient, volatile puzzle. For those of you who remember Vietnam, the so-called limited conflict that became a quagmire, or Iraq, where shock and awe turned into years of insurgency and chaos, this moment in Yemen may feel chillingly familiar. We dropped the hammer, and now we must ask, what next? Will retaliation spiral into occupation? Will international waters become battlegrounds? Will oil prices soar, affecting everything from gas pumps to grocery shelves? Will American troops be drawn into yet another desert war without a clear exit? These are not distant questions. They are deeply personal. They affect your economy, your children in uniform, your place in a world that's growing more dangerous by the hour. So now, to our viewers, many of whom have served, lost friends, seen the flag folded at funerals, or remember when headlines became history. We ask, what is the right path forward? More missiles or more diplomacy? A hard fist or a smarter strategy? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because your experience, your hard-earned wisdom, may be the most valuable voice in the room right now. This story is for those who don't just watch history, but lived it. For those who value nuance over noise. Like, comment, and subscribe for more honest, strategic, real-world stories where conflict meets consequence.